can we move away from power for just a bit and look at other areas? I mean, when you were talking about educating the people, my mind went to the people in the rural areas. Um, you all have your jobs cut out in the cities already, teaching us about how to preserve the environment. The woman in the rural area, for instance, how are you going to get to her to educate her that using firewood is not the best for the environment?
Yeah, thank you very much. You will recall one of the reports of the World Bank that 85% of deforestation in Nigeria comes from cutting down trees for cooking. About over 93,000 women and children die every year from indoor air pollution. So when you look at the contribution of reducing of the carbon sink of the greenhouse gases, the sink for the greenhouse gases are the forests. And the common person in the village, that is to be able to have energy for cooking, for lighting, it depends on the forest. The ecological services there are being degraded. One of the one of the programs that has been put in place is the improved clean cook stove. The first clean cook stove was actually that I fabricated in 1995 in Abuja here, resulted in the copper being employed in NYC. That cook stove reduces indoor air pollution by not less than 60%. Some of this cook stove by Safe 80, it reduces the indoor air pollution by 80%. This cook stove is, if we involve the private sector into it, there's a global alliance for it to make sure that people buy this cook stove. And some of these stoves that are also being promoted by SME, by Mr. Femi Oye, they actually utilize the waste that are produced to produce the gel. The gel which is now used to fire the stove and does not depend on the trees. It does not compromise the integrity of our forest, which is our great ally. We look in terms of the tree planting. Government put in place the Great Green Wall Sahara. When I was in Ethiopia as the technical advisor to AU, the program put in place by that country is going to benefit the farmers because of the carbon credit opportunities from tree planting. We need to encourage farmers and people who engage in planting of trees to actually restore the ecosystem. The people who depend on the ecological services from the forest need to be encouraged by giving them these cook stoves that are very cheap and affordable. There is one of the stoves that costs about 3,500, cheaper than some of the stoves we have. And it uses only about 20% of the wood that you need to do. If you look around us in the villages, the size of affluence by some village communities, the amount of trees, the wood that is in front of their houses. Just like moving aside to another program of the waste that is being produced. I want to go very quickly to a historical fact about waste that is generated, and especially the toxic waste in about 1980s. That waste was brought to Nigeria by some of the Italian mafia. And people did not know the danger of some of the toxic waste which will harbor around us in the waste around us. If you go around some people when they want to describe their houses, they will say, if you move along the house, you will see a huge waste dump. That is my house. Nobody ever is proud of identifying his house with waste dump. Waste dump is where you have rodents and rats and diseases. The linkage between the waste and the diseases and the human health and sustainable livelihood is absent. People need to be brought to know that when you harbor waste, there are some states that don't even deal with waste. I was in Akwa Ibom State during my youth service. The first thing you do every morning, the women, is to sweep the ground, and the waste that is collected is now a resource for a sort of composting that you can boost your agric without using fertilizers that kills the soil. So the education aspect is quite important. The advocacy aspect is very important in terms of letting the common woman, the common citizens, the citizens to be climate resilient. While the cities are becoming climate resilient, we need to do that, but the common citizens in the villages need to have this information brought across to them.
Okay.
And
Thank you,
we have
Victor.
some NGOs doing that.
Thank you, Victor. Let's bring the discussion back into the studio now. He spoke about the cook stoves. Tell us about that contract. We hear it was to the tune of 9-point-something billion naira. I mean, are people accepting the cook stoves? Are they using them? You know?
Well, first, I just want to commend Victor. You know, as the channel's appointed Bishop of the Environment, I pray that the Almighty God shall bless him for this wonderful dissertation, this wonderful talk and awareness. You know, because he hit so many salient points. He really, really did. He talked about the gas and about, you know, the positive aspects that you can draw out of tackling climate change. He talked about forestation, which is the key. That is, in fact, if the truth must be known, forestation, the tropical rainforest, is the only buffer that exists between, you know, humanity having a very decent experience in the next 30, 40 years or catastrophic climate change. It's the only buffer because it'll slow down the process of carbonization until we can get our heads around that reality which you've been talking about and he has been talking about, that brings us to, you know, good energy use, like this this cook stove. Well, it's painful to me. It's deeply painful. It sears me in my heart that I've seen pictures. You know, I've seen pictures of our women folk in the northern parts of the country walking for hours just to go and get firewood for cooking. And then the poor woman will walk back again with the fire. I don't know why it's the woman that, but that's a whole nother story. Yeah. In a place where the removal of the trees, removal of the forest is exacerbating the desertification. Absolutely. So, you know, this cook stove, any type of cook stove, well, it's encouraging. But if you want a really clean cook stove, then why not tap a little bit of this gas that is being flared and make it available as gas cooker? There's a company in Nigeria that actually has what looks like a camping gas kind of scenario, and it's supposed to be the alternative to the kerosene stove.
Yes.
We have abundance of gas. It is a fossil fuel.
Are people accepting it readily?
Well, it's down to the marketing. It depends on how it's done. It depends on the governmental policy. There's some countries in the world where, you know, government were facing similar situations. What they did, they went and bought millions of these stoves. And they went on a campaign. And they gave the stoves free of charge. And there's nothing preventing us from doing that in the north. Giving millions of these stoves completely free of charge to the woman. And then giving them enlightening campaigns on how to use the stove. Make arrangements with the suppliers of the gas to ensure that they were able to refill the stoves. And they can give them even subsidy for refilling the stoves, in the same way that we're giving subsidy for the fertilizer, you know, through some sort of safe method, and institute the use of the gas as a cooking energy device, as opposed to...
You said something about only in the north, only the north?
Well, particularly, why I'm emphasizing on that is because the north is the area that is being so severely impacted by the deforestation. And one of the major drivers of the deforestation is because people don't want to be eating raw food. They got to cook their food, so they're looking for wood to cook their food. Meanwhile, the destruction of this wood is bringing in the desert. You know, it's a terrible situation because it works on itself. The desertification is now causing environmental degradation. The degradation is causing people to become environmental refugees in their own land.
But
and
you know,
susceptible
some
to
people
all
will
types
tell
of
you
nonsense.
that the taste of the cooking with firewood is better than with gas. So that's
The
what...
taste of the smoke from firewood in meat, for instance, in roasted meat or in
So
jollof rice.
you hear that?
No,
so
don't
now
worry,
they
we can
don't...
give you, we can give you a condiment. There's a condiment. Maggie will make a nice smoke cube to compensate for that.
I think that happened because you don't know the cost of that, your taste. So the cost is actually the
Very
health
correct, very correct.
A very, very high cost.
But to many children in Nigeria have grown up eating nothing but food cooked on a gas cooker. So they won't appreciate the smoke taste I'm talking about, which is a good thing.
Yes.
So that is old taste.
Yeah, and at least
That taste has gone out of vogue, thankfully.
It's cleanly cooked food.
All right.